Spain vs Turkey, a clash that turned into one of the most jaw-dropping spectacles in international football, a game where the brilliance of Spanish football was displayed in its purest form and the Turkish side found themselves overwhelmed by a tidal wave of relentless attacks, precise passing, and ruthless finishing. This wasn't just a football match. It was a statement, a reminder to the world that Spain, when in rhythm, can destroy even the most well-prepared sides. The scoreline ended 6-0, but the story behind those 6 goals, the dominance in possession, the confidence with every touch, and the emotional rise of the Spanish players and fans is something that deserves to be told in detail. From the opening whistle, Spain made their intentions crystal clear. The ball was theirs, and Turkey would have to chase shadows all evening. The tiki-taka rhythm, which had once conquered Europe and the world, seemed to have returned with a vengeance. Every pass had purpose, every movement created confusion in the Turkish defense. The crowd felt it, the players felt it, and you could sense from the very first minutes that Turkey was in for a long and painful 90 minutes. The Spanish midfield trio dictated the game like master conductors leading an orchestra. Their control was so complete that Turkey struggled to even string passes together in the first half. The Spanish wingers stretched the pitch wide, constantly pulling defenders out of position, while their striker acted like a predator waiting for the perfect kill. The first goal came like a lightning bolt. A quick series of passes sliced through Turkey's midfield, and with one clever ball, Spain unlocked the defense. The finish was clinical, the stadium erupted, and the Turkish players immediately looked around at each other with nervous expressions. That was only the beginning. The second goal wasn't far behind, and it came from a stunning strike outside the box, a reminder that Spain doesn't always need to walk the ball into the net. This was confidence, pure and unfiltered. The players celebrated together, pointing to the crest on their shirts, letting everyone know that this was a performance for their fans, for their country, and for their pride. Turkey tried to fight back. They pressed high at times, tried to break the Spanish rhythm, but every attempt seemed to backfire. Whenever they pushed numbers forward, Spain exploited the space behind them with speed and precision. By half-time, the game already felt over. Spain had scored 3 goals, and the Turkish defense looked shattered, their heads dropping, their shoulders slumped. The half-time whistle was almost a relief for them, a chance to breathe and gather their thoughts, but for the fans inside the stadium, it was pure joy, a chance to celebrate what was turning into a masterclass. The second half didn't bring mercy. Spain smelled blood and went straight for the kill. The fourth goal came early in the half, and it was one of the most beautifully worked goals of the night. The build-up play was mesmerizing, passes exchanged in tight spaces, and when the final ball was played through, the finish was unstoppable. The Turkish goalkeeper could do nothing but dive helplessly as the net rippled once again. The Spanish players celebrated with passion, their joy uncontainable. You could see the connection between the team and the fans. The entire stadium was bouncing, chants echoing, flags waving, and a sea of red and yellow filling the air with pure energy. At this point, Turkey looked broken. Their players still ran, still tried to close down spaces, but their legs were heavy and their spirits crushed. Spain, however, wasn't done. The fifth goal came after another wave of attacks, and this time it was a striker's finish that showed composure and class. It was the kind of finish you replay over and over, not just for the goal but for the build-up that led to it. The camera caught the Turkish coach on the sidelines, shaking his head, unable to believe what he was witnessing. His players had given up, their body language said it all. Spain, however, were enjoying every second of it, and when the sixth and final goal hit the back of the net, it felt like the closing act of a grand performance. 6 goals to none. That number alone doesn't fully capture the dominance Spain displayed. They had nearly 75% possession, completed over 800 passes, and barely allowed Turkey a sniff at goal. The statistics tell the story of domination, but the emotions tell something deeper. This was about pride, about Spain reclaiming their identity, about showing the world that they are still capable of brilliance. For the Spanish players, this was redemption, a chance to silence critics who had doubted their consistency. For the fans, it was pure ecstasy, the kind of night you remember for years. Turkey, on the other hand, left the field devastated. Football can be cruel, and on this night, it was unforgiving. The Turkish players knew they had been dismantled, not just beaten but humiliated on the grand stage. Yet even in the defeat, there's a lesson. Matches like this show the gap between good and great, between teams that compete and teams that dominate. Turkey will go home with painful memories, but also with the realization of what it takes to compete at the highest level. For Spain, the heroes were many. The midfielders who controlled the tempo, the wingers who tore down the flanks, the defenders who made sure the rare Turkish attacks went nowhere, and of course, the finishers who made every chance count. The man of the match could have been any number of players, because the entire team played as one unit. The chemistry was electric, the spirit unshakable, and the performance unforgettable. Looking at the scorecard, it's simple yet powerful. Spain 6, Turkey 0. Goals in the 12th, 24th, 38th, 52nd, 67th, and 81st minutes. Each goal adding another chapter to this unforgettable night. The scorers shared the spotlight, with multiple players getting on the score sheet, showing that this wasn't just about one star carrying the team, but a collective brilliance that made Spain unstoppable. Every goal had its own flavor, from long-range strikes to close finishes, from team build-up plays to individual brilliance. It was a full display of what football can be at its very best. When the final whistle blew, the Spanish players embraced each other, smiling, laughing, and pointing to the fans who had been singing their names all night. The Turkish players, in contrast, walked slowly off the field, some with tears, others with blank stares, knowing they had been part of a match that will be remembered, but for reasons they'd rather forget. Football is emotional, it's cruel, it's beautiful, and this match was the perfect example of all those things coming together in 90 unforgettable minutes. Spain versus Turkey wasn't just a game, it was a declaration. Spain is back, stronger, sharper, and more ruthless than ever. And for Turkey, this painful night will linger, but perhaps, in time, it will become the fuel that drives them to improve, to rise, and to one day write their own redemption story.